Hillary Clinton wants to shut down family farms just like she wants to shut down the miners and the steelworkers. Her anti-energy agenda will drive up the cost of energy, another attack on agriculture. It's a big attack on what you're doing because you need the energy. We're going to end this war on the American farmer.
Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton's agenda as he hammers on the importance of expanding America's economy. The GDP growing a sluggish 1.1% in the second quarter. That was the reading just last week. That was lower than expected during the slowest economic recovery since World War II. Stephen Moore is with us. He's an economic advisor for the Trump campaign. He is also a distinguished visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And Steve, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Welcome.
Hi, Maria.
First, characterize where we are right now. We got that GDP number last week. I feel like recession fears have gone down, and yet we're still at this real crawl, if you want to call it that, of economic growth.
Well, first of all, for a lot of Americans, they are in a recession. Let's be very clear about that. I mean, we're looking at averages, but when the economy is only growing at 1%, which has been the number now for 6 months, you know, a lot of families are actually losing income. The only reason, by the way, Maria, that the number wasn't worse than it was is consumers are still spending. It's interesting. Their spending was up in the first half of the year, but the problem is, Maria, consumer spending is rising faster than wages and salaries. So people are dipping into their savings to spend money. And the question, of course, is how long can that happen? I would make the case to you when it comes to the economy right now, the business sector is in a soft recession. You look at what's happening with business spending, you look at what's happening with business confidence, and then as you cover every day on your business show, corporate profits have leveled off and are not growing. And that is a big problem because if you don't have healthy companies, you're not going to get jobs.
So the thought is, from the Trump campaign's perspective, is if you lower taxes for the business segment, you will create an environment, and if you roll back regulations of business, you will create an environment where business will create jobs and hire more people.
Exactly. And so we have the 15% tax rate on both big businesses and small businesses. So we're going to take America from being the highest tax rate country in the world down to the lowest. And we believe, and I think most economists would agree with us, that you bring that rate down, you're going to start to see those jobs that are leaving from Mexico and China and India to come right back to the United States. It's going to be a magnet. And you mentioned regulation. You know, Maria, when we've met with business leaders, people who run, whether it's manufacturing firms or transportation companies or community banks, what they're telling us is that the regulatory stranglehold is even worse than the tax burden right now. So those are huge. I wanted to mention one other thing that happened this week because it got completely overshadowed by the politics of the week, Maria, was what happened with the budget numbers. You know, for the first time, we've seen actually the budget deficit get worse. So the budget deficit this year is going to be about $600 billion, and the budget office tells us that that number is headed to $1 trillion. So if we just stay on the course we're on right now, Maria, that means in a few years we're headed right back to trillion-dollar deficits. Wow. I never thought I'd see the day.
And every time we talk, I always ask you the same question, and that is, okay, you want to cut taxes all of this much, but how do you pay for it? But you've said to me in the past that you're going to have several $1 trillion in spending cuts that will make up for any budget shortfall. Is that right?
Well, a couple things, Maria. First of all, we believe fervently that the most important thing right now to concentrate is get the economy moving. If we have 1% growth, you can't solve any of the problems, whether it's poverty, whether it's the budget deficit, whether it's creating high-paying jobs. You're just not going to ever get there with 1% growth. So our strategy is go from 1% to 4% growth. We think we can do that through our tax reduction plan. And by the way, energy production is a big one where you have a contrast between Hillary and Trump. Trump wants to use all our resources. But the point is, let's say we could get the GDP growth up by 2 percentage points. You're talking about reducing the debt over 10 years by $4 or $5 trillion. So that's number one. You got to get growth. Right. Number two, we are going to cut spending. We're looking at a lot of programs where we're either going to freeze them or programs that just are wasting money. We're going to get rid of them. The other thing that is not focused on enough in the Trump plan, we're going to get rid of a lot of those loopholes, and especially for rich people. I mean, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and wealthy people are going to lose their deductions, but they're going to get a lower rate. That's what Reagan did in '86, and it was a great reform of the tax system.
But Hillary said that she's going to be helping small business. She says that Trump's plan doesn't help small business, that her plan helps small business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ask small businesses. So, you know, we're taxing every small business at 15%. She wants to take the tax rate on small businesses as high as 45 to almost nearly 50%. But more importantly, on the regulatory front, she was saying one of the things she said is, we're going to make it easier for businesses to entrepreneurs to start new businesses. Great idea, Hillary, but you've endorsed every regulation there is out there that's prohibiting, businesses from getting that capital and those loans. And I'll give you one example.
Okay.
Community banks are going away because of the Dodd-Frank bill. You know this, you've covered it. If you get rid of Dodd-Frank, community banks will come back, and those are the Jimmy Stewart savings and loans that lend to the little corner grocery stores and the other small businesses that are the spinal cord of our economy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know you've said that each percentage point increase in growth means almost $2.5 trillion in lower borrowing. So going from 1% to 4% growth won't be that tough. Steve, great to see you. Thanks so much for connecting the dots for us.
Okay, Maria, have a great week.
We'll see you soon. Stephen Moore there.